Welcome everyone. I guess this was bad timing for this press conference, but I feel that it takes precedence. I feel this takes precedence over the closing arguments for the JD thing right now. Personally, me, uh, but to each their own. I'm not mad at anybody for that. But basically, I'm just going to play this press conference once once it starts, which it just started. So let me just go ahead and get right into that.
One call at 11:30. There was a crash, man with a gun. 11:31, the suspect reaches last row of vehicles in the school parking lot. 11:31, the suspect shooting began at the school while patrol vehicles got to the funeral home. I'll point out where it is. Crashed vehicles over here. Suspect hiding behind a vehicle, started walking down, shooting into the classroom. There was a discussion early on that an ISD, consolidated ISD for Uvalde, was a resource officer and had confronted the subject. That did not happen, as R.D. Escalon talked about yesterday. It was certainly stated in preliminary interviews, but often these preliminary interviews and a cursory walkthrough doesn't reveal the type of information. And certainly, police officers, like anyone else, under stress, sometimes witnesses get it wrong. But the bottom line is that officer was not on scene, not on campus, but had heard the 911 call with a man with a gun, drove immediately to the area, sped to what he thought was the man with a gun, to the back of the school, what turned out to be a teacher and not the suspect. In doing so, he drove right by the suspect, who was hunkered down behind a vehicle, where he began shooting at the school.
Oh my God.
11:31, the suspect shooting in between the vehicle is when it began, while patrol vehicle gets to the funeral home. Multiple shots are fired outside the school at 11:31. Patrol car accelerates into the parking lot, drives by the shooter. That's exactly what I was talking about. That was the ISD officer at that time. He passes and then leaves the camera view. There's multiple shots fired at the school at 11:32, at 11:32:27, 11:32:36. At 11:33 is when the suspect entered the school at the door that I'm pointing to now. At 11:33, the suspect begins shooting into room 111 or 112. It's not possible to determine from the video angle that we have at this point in time. We do know this, that he shot more than 100 rounds based on the audio evidence.
Oh my
at that
God.
time, at least 100 rounds.
There's audio evidence.
He entered at 11:33, or 11:33, he started shooting in the classrooms, 111 and 112. And 11:35, 3 police officers entered the same door as the suspect entered. All 3 of those police officers worked for the Uvalde Police Department. They were later followed by another 4, a team of Uvalde police officers, 3, and also a county deputy sheriff. So a total of 7 officers were on the scene. The 3 initial police officers that arrived went directly to the door, and 2 received grazing wounds at that time from the suspect.
Oh my God.
While the door was closed.
Brave officers.
At 11:37, there was more gunfire. Another 16 rounds was fired at 11:37. 1 at 11:37 and 16 seconds, 11:38, 11:40, 11:44. At 11:51, a police sergeant and USB agents started to arrive. At 12:03, officers continued to arrive in the hallway, and there were as many as 19 officers at that time in that hallway. At 12:15, we know that BORTAC members arrived. not the entire board TAC, but members of board TAC, along with Shields at 12:21. The suspect fired again, was believed to be at the door. At 11:21, law enforcement moved down the hallway. At 11:50, they breached the door using keys that they're able to get from the janitor because both doors were locked. Though both of the classrooms that he shot into were locked when officers arrived. They killed the suspect at that time. And now I'd like to go over the 911 timeline. Which I'll warn you is not
Trigger warning, folks.
It's better than I read it than you listen to it. The caller identified, I'll not say her name, but she was in room 112, called 911 at 12:03. The duration of the call was 1 minute and 23 seconds. She identified herself and whispered she's in room 112.
Oh my God. This is awful.
At 12:10, she called back in room 12, advised there were multiple dead. 12:13, again, she called on the phone. Again, at 12:16, she called back and said there was 8 to 9 students alive. At 12:19, the 911 call was made, and another person in room 111 called. I will not say her name. She hung up when another student told her to hang up. At 12:21, you could hear.
Oh my God.
Over the 911 call, 3 shots were fired.
Can you imagine how scared they were?
911 call, it lasted for 21 seconds. The initial caller called back, student, child called back.
Oh my God.
Was told to stay on the line and be very quiet. She told 911 that he shot the door at approximately 12:43 and 12:47. She asked 911 to please send the police now. At 12:46, she said that she could hear the police next door. At 12:50, shots are fired. They can be heard with the 911 call. And at 12:51 is very loud and sounds like the officers are moving children out of the room. At that time, the first child that called was outside before the call cuts off. Additional information that we have is that there are 58 total magazines at the school related to the crime scene. 11 of those magazines were inside the school. 3 were on the suspect's body. 2 in room 112, 6 inside room 111. 5 were on the ground, 1 was in the rifle. There were 32 magazines outside the school, but on school property. 1 just outside the school building and 31 in the suspect's backpack that he did not take into the classrooms with him. There's 15 magazines at the crash site. There were 2 magazines at the suspect's residence for a total of 60 magazines.
Jesus.
He had purchased and had a total of 1,657 total rounds of ammunition. 315 of those rounds were inside the school. 142 of those were spent cartridges. 173 were live rounds. 922 were outside of the school, but on school property. 22 of those were spent cartridges. 900 were live rounds. 422 were at the crash site. 22 were spent cartridges. 420 of those were live rounds. There's 35 spent law enforcement cartridges total in the school. 8 of those were in the hallway. 27 were inside the classroom. 111 where the suspect was killed. I mentioned that I'm going to go over quickly my digital timeline. One thing we talked about early, and I want to correct something that was said early on in the investigation, is that he posted, on Facebook publicly that he was going to kill he was going to shoot his grandmother. And secondly, after that he had shot her, and then third, that he was going to go shoot up a school. That did not happen. It was actually on a message. It was a Facebook application, messenger application to somebody else that he had a conversation with. We know that through his digital media footprint, and I'll just do by date time, that Ramos asked his sister to help him buy a gun. She flatly refused. That was in September of 21.
That's because his sister knew he was crazy.
I'll avoid some of these and get to the. He had Instagram, a 4-group chat, and it was discussed that Ramos being a school shooter. That was on February 28th of 2022.
Wow.
On March 1st, 2022, there was an Instagram he had with 4 people. It was a chat. He discussed him buying a gun. On March 3rd, 2022, there was another 4-person chat. Quotations, word on the street is you are buying a gun. Ramos replied, just bought something. RN.
Bought something right now.
On March 14th, and there was an Instagram posting by the subject, in quotations, 10 more days.
So this was absolutely planned.
Replied, are you going to shoot up school or something? The subject replied, no, and stop asking dumb questions and you'll see.
Huh. Wow. This is a lot of information he's given us. Because it is technically still an open investigation. Even though he's caught.
I know you have many
or
questions.
Dead.
And I've agreed to stay as long as we can, to answer as many of those questions that we can. If I can't answer it, because we don't know definitively right now, I'll simply say that. And it continues to be a preliminary investigation. There's, literally, certainly over hundreds of interviews that have been conducted, will continue to be conducted. And there's thousands of leads that will be pursued, not consecutively, but concurrently. And thanks to our federal and local partners, and I do want to mention behind me, we've got the FBI Special Agent in Charge. We also have an ATF Special Agent in Charge, or ASAC, and of course, who else? What I got behind?
Those guys look like they mean
Texas
business.
Rangers. If there's any specifics that I haven't covered,
Texas Rangers look like they
support on.
straight up
I
mean
cover
business,
one thing
man.
quickly though before I go to questions, and that's some of the questions that we have already received. And one of those is going around now that in fact the subject had been one of the 2 arrested by the Texas Rangers and the local police back in 2018. That's not the case. He was not one of the individuals. In fact, we have found no links, associations, and relationships in that investigation. Clearly, it was a threat. It was back in 2018. The 2 juveniles were charged with attempted or conspiracy to commit capital murder. There's no question that we thought, and we had evidence, and certainly the district attorney agreed, that these juveniles, one 13, one 14 years old, was a threat to Uvalde.
Wow.
And there was a discussion at that time, even the senior year of the one that was 14 years old, which would make it 2022. However, that was not the subject. Questions?
Tony's going to translate in Spanish.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, one thing I want to say, one thing I failed to say is that when we're done, we have Tony Pena with us. He's going to translate into Spanish, okay, what the answers and the questions are afterwards. Okay.
Wow. Like the media's in a frenzy there.
Thank you for doing this, and I do hope you stay here and take as many questions as possible. You say there were 19 officers gathered in the hallway or somewhere. What efforts were made to try and break through that door? You say it was locked. What efforts were the officers making to try and break through either that door or another door to get inside that classroom?
None at that time.
Why?
The on-scene commander at the time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject.
Sir, you have people who are alive, children who are calling 911, say, please send the police. They are alive. In that classroom, there are lives that are at risk.
Hey, we're well aware of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Why was this decision made not to go in and rescue these children?
Again, the on-scene commander considered it a barricaded subject and that there was time and there were no more children at risk. Obviously, based upon the information we have, there were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation and not a barricaded subject.
Wow.
To understand that there were 911 calls coming in from 12:10, right? And the suspect was taken out at 12:50. 40 minutes during which, sorry, I'm tethered here, yeah. There was a 40-minute time span from those 911 calls coming in, right? And you probably have dispatchers relaying information to officers on the scene, telling them, hey, there are children in that classroom, they're still being shot right now, they're still being alive.
So he's getting a lot of flack right now because they didn't rush in, basically like guns to the
The question
Navarone.
simply is this: it was a 40-minute gap, and if the 911 operators were aware that children were alive in that classroom, why weren't officers notified of that? And if that's the case, why didn't they take action? That's the question. And again, I'll go back to the answer for right now: is that it was considered. Okay, the decision was made on the scene. I wasn't there, but at the same point in time, a decision was made that this was a barricaded subject situation. There was time to retrieve the keys and wait for a tactical team with the equipment to go ahead and breach the door and take on the subject at that point. That was the decision. That was the thought process at that particular point in time.
They didn't have eyes in there, man. They couldn't have known.
What can you tell parents that were either way and asking for the police to go in?
Did you end up following for them?
And there was 19, like I said, there was 19 officers in there. In fact, there was plenty of officers to do whatever needed to be done.
This guy's getting a
With
lot
one
of heat,
exception
man.
is that the incident commander inside believed they needed more equipment and more officers to do a tactical breach at that point. That's why BORTAC was requested on the scene. As soon as they were there, they executed a search, or at least a dynamic entry, and went in. And of course, that was not till 12. That was not till 12:57. With the benefit of hindsight, stand by, stand by,
Wow.
right?
I've never seen a press conference like this before.
Okay. Hey, for the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, then of course it was not the right decision. It was a wrong decision. Period. There's no excuse for that. But again, I wasn't there, but I'm just telling you, from what we know, we believe there should have been an entry at that as soon as you can. Hey, when there's an active shooter, the rules change. It's no longer, okay, it's no longer a barricaded subject. We don't have time. You don't worry about outer perimeters. And by the way, Texas embraces active shooter training, active shooter certification, and that doctrine requires officers. We don't care what agency you're from. You don't have to have a leader on the scene. Every officer lines up, stacks up, goes and finds where those rounds are being fired at, and keeps shooting until the subject is dead. Period.
What is your message for the parents?
Obviously, south of the border, it's very difficult to understand how the most powerful nations of the world, their citizens have access to high-end weapons, and this is happening over and over.
I feel bad for this guy right now.
I don't need to want the 9 points that you guys press for the expert on questions. How can you keep this from happening again in the communities of Texas? And second, how did a 18-year-old kid Wendy's wait?
So what's going on here is,
Well, answer the last. He used the debit card first, but to your point, it's very expensive, and a debit card is not a credit card. It means he had money in the bank. So why and how it's being looked at right now, and I'll tell you this, thousands of more leads are being looked at right now because we haven't answered all the questions. We haven't gotten into the why. Okay, we know the individual was also into cyber gaming in that regard. and group gaming in that. So we've got a lot of questions
God,
around
come
there.
on with that,
We're
dude.
seeking answers, but we've got an obligation. We'll continue to update you when we find something out. Hey, woman in the.
Mendoza from VOA News. I have two questions. The first one is being said that Border Patrol had the special team on site and the local police did not allow them to go into the building. Can you elaborate why that was?
The Border Patrol agents, the BORTAC agents that were in the building did line up. They're part of the 19 that I talked about, and the entry team, ultimately the entry team that went in. But I can tell you that they were told, just as any other officer was told, and others, even command staff that came on board, is that the incident commander at the time it's believed that in fact it was a barricaded subject, that we had time, there was no kids at risk.
Can't say that though, man. Like, I could see why the press is getting upset, because it's a school, dude. Of course there's kids in there. Of course they're in danger.
Because there's no question. And I'll say this right now, and every time we have one of these and there's copycats, okay? And we need the public, just like we did back in 2018, there was a public, okay, that came forward that we got 2 people that are about to shoot up a school or planning to shoot a school. It's imperative on the public, when you get something, just because it sounds like he's a nut, he may be a nut, but just because it sounds like, well, possible to do, he may be intended to do, as I read the timeline based upon the chats that he had. So we need everyone, when we have a threat to life like that, to take it seriously and report it, because ultimately this is tragic. What do you tell the parents of 19 kids, or the families of two teachers? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Morgan Chesky, NBC News. You said you wanted to wait for tactical gear. By 12:15, you had at least 15 officers and shields on scene.
Yeah.
Yet you did not reach the door until 12:50.
Hey, like I've said it before, is that, well, first of all,
Wow.
when it comes to an active shooter, you don't have to wait on tactical gear. Plain and simple, you've got an obligation. What I know now, okay, absolutely, it was an active shooter, because you can transition. Keep in mind, in the doctrine, okay, of active shooters, you can transition from an active shooter situation to a barricaded subject, or a barricaded with hostage subject.
No, Platform Boots, that wasn't him. He just confirmed that wasn't him,
Platform Boots. If any
Boots.
reason to believe that there's individuals alive in there, you've got an obligation to move back to an active shooter posture, and that means everybody at the door.
At 12:03, you got a 911 call from a teacher saying there were children alive in classroom 112, 8 to 9 children. Is that teacher, are those children still alive? And why was the school resource officer off campus? And did Uvalde SWAT respond to the scene?
Well,
why was the school resource officer off campus?
Number one, the ISD's got, they've limited officers. I think, what is it? Well, they got 6. They got 6, yeah. The Consolidated Independent School District has 6 officers, and they didn't have one posted.
I'm getting there too, Sammy.
And someone said, "Hey, what do you tell the parents?" I mean, bottom line is that, or someone talked about, said, when there's kids in the room, why wasn't there an entry? Because it was believed, like I said at the time, that the subject was stationary, barricaded. There was no risk to other children. Again, on retrospect, from where I'm sitting right now, clearly there was kids in the room. Clearly, okay, they're at risk. And oh, by the way, even when you go back to shooting, there may be kids that are injured. Okay, they may have been shot but injured, and it's important for life-saving purposes to immediately get there and render aid.
Dude, they're gonna start throwing tomatoes at this guy.
Why was he not on campus?
Why
He was
wasn't
not
he
on
there?
campus.
Why? Where was he?
Again, well, we'll have all those answers down the road. Okay.
Oh my God, dude.
Sir, did those callers survive?
Yeah.
Like, these reporters are genuinely angry. Like, this isn't another day at work for them. This is really...
Well, first, First, I want to say that the Consolidated Independent School District officers were there early. There was 4 of them, and they immediately began evacuating the school and did that throughout the process. So that, keep in mind, so that was going on. And what do I say to the parents? I don't have anything to say to the parents other than what had happened. We're not here to defend what happened. We're here to report the facts so they have the facts.
Oh, this guy's PR skills are not great.
Bottom line, the consultant. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, I don't have any information on that. Oh, one second though. However, we did review of what DPS officers arrived on the scene, what they did, and looked at those instances.
You know the parents of the children who died are watching right now, and they're hearing you say that not everything that could possibly have been done as humanly fast as it could be done was done. Are they owed an apology from somebody, be it the incident commander and the police department here?
If I thought it would help, I would apologize.
Oh my God, man.
But let me say this.
Wow,
hey, let me say this.
dude.
When you go back to the timeline, again, I want to go back and I'm not defending anything, but you go back to the timeline. There was a barrage. Hundreds of rounds were pumped in 4 minutes, okay, into those 2 classrooms. Then anything else, any firing afterwards was sporadic, and it was at the door. So the belief is that there may not be anybody living anymore, and that the subject is now trying to keep law enforcement at bay or entice them to come in to suicide by contact. I understand that. I've reported that.
I agree with you, Cherry. Like, I'm not mad at the guy. He wasn't there.
Well, I might answer the first one, but the why on the second one I don't have. The first one, that each door can lock from the inside, and both doors were locked, okay, from the inside. So the subject, when he went in, he locked the door. He came out one time into the hallway, went back in and locked the door, because at the time that the officers went in, both doors were locked. They got a key from the janitor and used it.
The first call came in inside the classroom at 12:03, and you breached it at 12:51. How many students died in those 48 minutes?
I don't have that answer. We're looking at it right now.
Why wasn't the school placed on lockdown? And 2, while this may be the most unpopular question here today, what is on your heart? How are you doing? You've been shaking the whole time you're up here.
Oh my God, is he gonna break down? Is he gonna break down right now? Oh my God.
Forget how I'm doing. What about the parents of those children?
Oh, this poor guy,
Forget
man.
about me. What about me or officers and stuff like that? We take an oath to uphold the law and protect people. And anytime something tragic like that, we want to know why it happened and if we can do better next time, as a bottom line, and call it like it is. I mean, it's tragic. Quite frankly, I mean, there shouldn't be anybody. Ideally, we've been able to identify this guy as a suspect and address it before he even thought about attacking, on the 24th.
There's a lot of ammunition, a lot of rounds. Are there other people that you're looking at to arrest?
And looking at other people? Absolutely. Anybody who's been in contact, we're looking at anything. And links to associations, people that may have known something and will continue and may have been involved in some chat room gaming along with them. So there's nobody that we're not going to talk to and look at. And I can assure you that the district attorney is very proactive and very concerned about this. And that if any evidence that we bring to her that someone was an accomplice or an enabler or didn't do what they should have done, if it's in violation of law and it meets the probable cause standards. I have no doubt that she'll take care of business like she did back in 2018 when we had 2 juveniles plot a capital murder at the school.
Curious AF, those are Texas Rangers.
You had 911 calls at 12:10, 12:13, 12:16. The shooter wasn't killed until 12:50. Did any of those 911 callers survive?
Yes. I can't tell you that with certainty, but more than one survived.
How many children got
Sorry, what?
Could you give us an update on the number of officers injured or conditioned that they are now in? Also, were there any windows in the classroom and officers?
Yes, the windows I'll go backwards. Right over here. I'll move over here.
Something shot into these windows right here as he's approaching the door.
You have been listening to an ongoing press conference in Uvalde, Texas, where Steve McCraw, the director of the Texas Public Safety Department, is explaining what happened with the deadly school shooting and has revealed some stunning details, admitting that mistakes were made on the ground when it came to the response that day.
That's not what he said.
Among other things,
That's not
there
what he
was
said.
no school resource officer on site, no ISD officer when the shooting began. He said there were more than 600 rounds of ammunition carried into that school by the shooter. To put that in perspective, that is
I'm
more
glad
than
she's
2
not saying
times
his
what a
name.
US soldier would take into combat. 210 rounds is what a soldier carries. He said it was the wrong decision made on the scene by the responding commanding officer to transition from an active shooter to a barricaded suspect protocol, explaining there that there were children trapped inside those classrooms, fearing for their lives and calling 911. There were concurrent 911 calls being made by trapped students at the same time that the responding commanding officer said that the active shooter threat had transitioned into a barricaded suspect protocol, meaning that is why officers didn't rush in to rescue them from these classrooms where they were trapped with doors locked and gunshots being fired. Also revealed that there is social media chatter going back to February of 2022. And Director McCraw, as you could see,
It is 2022.
Saying there is no excuse for what happened. I want to get some perspective on what we just learned from a former FBI official who is with us. Her name is Kathy Guider. Kathy, from what you just heard, it is hard, I know, to second guess what happens in the heat of the moment, but these seem to be major tactical mistakes as being described by McCraw.
It's hard for me to say at this point because I was not there. I don't have the intelligence that they had on the spot. As he said, every situation, there's going to be an after action report. And so not only right now are they investigating the tragedy of the shooting, they're having to do a separate investigation of the police officers' actions and timelines. So they've got 2 different situations going on. And as we heard in the news conference, at first, a couple days ago, there was a school police officer on site. Now we're finding out that there was not. So the situation and the facts of who was there and where they were at what time, still changing, or not changing, but still coming out. And so that's a whole separate investigation. And right now, I don't want to judge anybody because, like I said, I don't have as many facts as the director there, the commander. So I can't say for certain.
Okay. Well, that's why we know McCraw said that was the wrong decision. So he is laying blame there, which was a stunning admission for these parents who are in so much pain right now, to learn that the response was also flawed in that moment. This is an ongoing story. CBS will have ongoing coverage of the Robb Elementary School shooting, which is now the 2nd deadliest school shooting in American history. 19 children killed, 2 teachers also murdered, 21 in total, all in 2 classrooms side by side. Our coverage on CBS News continues on your streaming and local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Margaret Brennan in Washington.
You've been listening to a CBS News special report out of Uvalde, Texas, where law enforcement gave another update on the investigation.
Well, yeah, that's a tough one, man. It's really difficult to watch that guy get just like destroyed from all ends from all that press, but people are angry and people want answers, and rightfully so. And all this does, for me anyway, I can only explain myself. I can only express my own personal opinions regarding this situation as far as what could have been done. Then I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not trained in tactical maneuvering or anything of that nature whatsoever, but I feel like I can sort of empathize as to why the decision was made to switch from an active shooter to a barricaded situation. Well, you know, now that I'm thinking out loud, I honestly can't. Because if you switch from an active shooter situation to a barricaded situation, well, the barricaded situation kind of implies that they assume everybody's already dead. There's nobody else to kill or shoot. And they wanted to catch the guy alive, and not cater to his likely suicide by cop plan that he had. Now, I don't know if you guys saw my posts. Now, hold on. He's back on. I'm gonna add this back on here, guys. He's
Them, period. And there's only, there's some nuances with transition to a barricaded subject, also transitioning to a hostage situation. And of course, the decision at the scene was that this is still a barricaded subject that did not go back to an active shooter situation.
Go ahead. Yeah. Where is the police chief and why isn't he here to take our questions?
Well, because I'm here to address the latest timeline and facts that we know. You're certainly welcome to reach out to them. Yeah. I defer to. You want to get the question? Hold on.
This guy's not qualified to answer those questions. He's in charge of public safety. He's not.
Two things. What exactly is your role in this investigation? And hearing all this, and given that the FBI goes through lengthy efforts to study active shooter situations like this, do you think this is something that requires an independent investigation by whether a federal agency or by you guys or someone else?
Thank you for the question. So my name is Oliver Rich. I'm the special agent in charge of the San Antonio division. First, I want to say I understand there are a lot of questions and there's a lot of frustration in the public, and our heart goes out to the families and the victims in this tragedy. I will say our role here remains the same. We are here to assist in this investigation, to provide the support to the community to the best of our ability. We've had 200 people here for over 4 days. We have people working all across the country to support this community and to support this investigation. We are continuing in that vein. We have victim specialists here working with people in the community, and we will continue to do that. If the facts bear out that there is a federal nexus, then the FBI will conduct an appropriate investigation at that time. But for now, we continue in this. to support the Texas Rangers.
Yes, those are Texas Rangers behind him.
How many more questions?
Two more questions.
No, 2 more questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Uvalde Police Department, Stephen Nabila, Hora News. Uvalde Police Department posted in February 2020 that they familiarized themselves with the school and they did the training to do just what they were supposed to do. How come they were not in lead, or their commanding officer was not in lead when they were familiarized with this training and they should have done what they were posting on Facebook they were doing? Who dropped the ball?
Yeah, I don't
Wow.
have the answer to that question.
He doesn't have the answer to that. He's the public safety director.
President Biden will be here on Sunday. Your thoughts on that? Do you have a message for the president?
Yeah, welcome here. Welcome to Texas. And this community has been hit hard. And I think it's noble that the president's going to be here to recognize the pain and suffering that this community is going through. And I think that's what leadership is. That's why Governor Abbott's here. That's why leaders go to where the problem is. And right now,
Yeah, I got my own opinions of why Biden's going to be there. I got my own opinions on that, which I'll get into.
And we have been listening to, at times, very tense.
All right, so yeah. I know exactly why President Biden's going to be there. Well, it's because he's expected to. He probably doesn't even know that he's going to be there right now, considering President Biden and how we know him to be. He doesn't even know what day it is. But as far as this whole thing turned into this guy getting attacked by the media when he wasn't qualified to answer any of those questions. They were asking about tactics, breach tactics. He doesn't know anything about that. He's public safety. He's not trained in that. So this guy just he got pushed into a piranha pit, man. That's all that happened right there. So I feel bad for him, but the thing is none of us know what it takes to go into a place to go into a situation like that, and what tactics need to be used. You have to understand they didn't have eyes on the inside. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know you're responding to a call, and all they know is that there's kids in there and that there's somebody with a gun, and there's been gunfire. And there's 911 calls that probably didn't have time to be reviewed yet. Just a dispatcher filling in responding officers with the information they have. And we've seen in the past where dispatchers are not really clear on as far as passing along information from a call to the responding officer. We've seen that happen. I think that happened with the Gabby Petito case, actually. So I made this post today because yesterday I decided not to turn that live into this discussion that we're going to get into, and I expect to I expect to ruffle some feathers here because this is a very sensitive subject, but I feel very strongly about it, and I don't feel any different. And as a matter of fact, I probably feel even more strongly about it, considering what I just heard about this situation and how it was executed. And so I posted this in community that this sign should be posted at every school. provided that it's actually accurate. It's not just some bluff. And as you can see, it says staff members are armed and trained. Any attempt to harm children will be met with deadly force. I truly believe that should be the case. I believe that if faculty members and staff members were allowed to carry, provided that they show proof of training, whether it be a certain amount of hours at the shooting range, targets that they've hit, and proof of that, things of that nature. And that's let me read some of the comments here. Okay. One comment here says, like a lot of parents and grandparents, I have a whole lot of thoughts and feelings about this stuff. Here come all my jumbled thoughts. Thank you, Will, for giving us space to unload this stuff and discuss. And you're welcome. The school district I live in was notified. Oh, I'm not reading all that. That's a long. That's just somebody's story. Sorry, whoever that is. I'm just not going to get into that right now. And I see the name Alex Jones in there. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Another comment says the neighboring town for me has armed teachers on premises. I'm all for it. Completely agree. And I'm actually going to give that a heart since I have the comments up. This is what I have been saying for a year. Armed and trained teachers and staff at every school. Keyword is trained. Exactly, Rhonda G. And I believe you're in chat right now. I couldn't agree with you more. Susan Lloyd, it's sad that we as Americans can have billions of our tax dollars spent on pet projects or sent to help other countries, but won't spend that same amount to protect our children in schools. I don't know how you would spend that money necessarily. I really don't. I honestly don't have a response to that comment. I don't know how you would spend that money. I think that that's a different subject. Or something that I just cannot give you an opinion on. The officers actually really have to be there. However, and they have to be armed, especially in smaller cities and towns. Everyone knows what goes on, and they will know the sign is a bluff if it is not followed through with 100%. I completely agree with that. It's not just about the sign, as I explained when I first started talking about this. It's definitely, it needs follow through. And I'll get into that. Let me read this. Actually, let me just address each comment as I go. I'm not talking about making it a requirement that faculty members of a public school have to carry or be trained. This is America. America is about freedom. I'm talking about allowing teachers and faculty to have the choice to be able to carry in order to defend themselves in a situation like that, and to be able to defend children who are incapable of defending themselves. That should be their decision to make. So all it's now going to take is a staff member having a freak out moment. It's still dangerous. I love that this comment was made. Let me explain something. It's not getting the heart because I don't agree. But I love that they made this comment because that's the common argument. That's the argument. So all it's going to take now is for a staff member having a freak out moment. It's still dangerous. Sure, there's definitely that risk, but that risk in comparison to what is it like? We're not even halfway through the year and there's already been 30 school shootings in this country. You think that there's going to be a freak out? There's going to be that many freakouts if somebody who is properly trained to handle a firearm someone who practices trigger discipline and understands safety issues when it comes to guns and safety procedures when it comes to carrying a firearm for protection. I think that type of person is way less likely to have a freak out moment. So I think that it's not a valid argument. I think that it's one of those arguments that seem valid, but all you have to do is just really think about it. And I don't think that would be the issue. I don't think that would be, I think that's a possibility, but the numbers don't lie. I mean, there's already been 30 school shootings just this year. So, you know, people talk about, you know, locking the school down. Well, first of all, you can't lock the doors from the inside to where people can't get out, right? That's a fire hazard. You can't do that, especially kids. And sure, you can make it to where, because I remember there were doors in my middle school and high school back in the 90s, man, you know, like where it had the long bar that you push and it opens the door from the inside. And then as it closes behind you and it locks from the outside. Pushing the bar from the inside pushes the door open, and that would unlock the door so you could get in. But as soon as the door closes, it locks automatically and keeps people out. The problem is that if a school shooter wanted to get into the building and they had a plan and they were determined, they're going to find a way into that building. The fact is that one armed officer that was not on the school grounds, that should have been on the school grounds, probably could have saved lives for sure. That's what that officer is there to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that shooter couldn't have gotten the drop on them. That's one person who's trained to use a gun. Now imagine if in Texas, can you imagine how many of those faculty members in the state of Texas who's very, very pro-gun there would have been at least more than one person that carries a gun for protection, goes to the shooting range, practices gun safety, and there would have been more than one. If all of those, if say 5 teachers were armed, right? And what if a couple of those teachers are veterans? That happens all the time too. If you just say 5 faculty members were armed, that could have absolutely saved lives. It likely would have saved lives. Let's see. This comment says they've got to be able to back it up. Seems like they've already dropped the ball. Took him an hour to get in there. The door was locked. That was Texas. You ain't supposed to be able to mess with them. Yeah, I mean, and then just a few comments to where they agree. Well, Cherry, this is the issue, and I'm really glad that it's you that's bringing this up. Because you live in England. I remember you had an incident where somebody very close to you got stabbed, and I said, "Oh my God, that's crazy." And we know that guns are illegal in England. But you when I said, "Oh my God," but that's crazy, you informed me that people get stabbed all the time, that it's actually a real problem in London. Stabbings are a real problem in London. So, do you think that gun control in England? Okay, see, you're saying stabbings are normal here in London, especially in London. Do you think that gun control is fixing your problem there? Because the problem obviously is not guns. The problem is violent people. You stating this just indicates to me that my point is valid. And I realize you're not arguing. You're saying you're not sure if the answer to the gun problem is more guns. It's not a gun problem. That's the common misconception. People are saying it's a gun problem. It's a gun problem. It is not a gun problem. The fact that the stabbings that take place in London is proof that it's not a gun problem. It's a violent person problem. True. No, that's also a good point. Kids aren't getting taken out by the dozens with stabbings. True. But what I'm saying is if that staff, because I mean, guns aren't going away. Let me explain this to you people. Okay. Guns aren't going away. They're just being more and more manufactured. They don't go bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's not 5 guns that die for every gun that gets made. No, just more and more guns are being made, and more guns are being out there, are being put out there. They're being manufactured and they're being put out into the world. Right now, everybody right now is screaming for, especially when situations like this happen. Every leftist is going, "Oh my God, we need more gun control. We need more gun laws." What is a gun law going to do? Seriously, what is a gun law going to do? Do you think that these gun manufacturers are going to stop production, that there's going to be laws that stop the production of these guns? No. You know how many politicians are invested in gun manufacturing companies? That's just never going to happen. Now, you could sit there and you could be like, if we need to do a mental health background check and blah, 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 blah. First of all, there are so many people who already know how to work a system, how to go into a psych eval, and they know exactly what the the psychological evaluator wants to hear. And it's such a cliche too, that guns, knives, acid don't kill people. People kill people. That's such a cliche, but it's the truth. It is the truth. Now, are guns used to kill people? Yeah. Do I particularly like guns? No, I don't. But I'm a realist, and I understand that they're there. And the best way to ensure that I'm not going to get shot when the shit goes down is to have firepower myself to protect myself, because the only thing that you're ever going to really be able to protect yourself from a gun is with a gun. That's the only way. And that's just reality. It's just how it is. I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy with the state of the world. I'm not some gun nut who's like, "Oh my God, guns are awesome. I collected this one and blah, blah, blah. And I love the firepower." And that's cool. If you are like that, that's cool. I just can't relate. I don't get, I enjoyed going to the gun range when I did, because, or at least the second time I did. I've only been to the gun range twice in my entire life. The second time I really enjoyed it, but it was because I had finally figured I got the hang of firing a handgun. And when I did well and I hit my targets, I was proud of myself, you know? So I enjoyed it like that, but I didn't feel this godlike power because I was shooting a gun, you know? I didn't feel big and bad because I was firing a gun. But I'm a realist that understands that guns are just part of our society now. They just are. They're always going to be, and there's only going to be more of them. And for me, like, this is why I don't understand people who call for gun control. The problem for the problem is not taking away people's liberties to be able to protect themselves. You know, that's not, or sorry, the solution. The solution is not that. The solution is not to take people's freedoms away that allow them to protect themselves. The Second Amendment was created and designed to protect us, it was designed for each individual American to be able to protect themselves from a tyrannical government, to make sure that we are not run under tyranny ever again, that we have the freedom as individuals to live free or die. That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do, to bear arms and protect yourself from a tyrannical government. Now, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen the next time there's another pandemic, right? Which there's a new one now. What is it? Monkeypox or something like that? Where there's a 99.9% survival rate. And if, God forbid, they start saying, oh, well, we're going to have to start building camps. We got to lock everybody down. I'm not doing that. As an American, I am free to be able to tell somebody in a position of authority, as long as I'm not hurting anyone, to be able to tell somebody in a position of authority, no, you're infringing on my personal freedom. And I should be able to kill and or die to protect my personal freedom. As an individual, as an American individual, I am God-given that right. You are God-given that right. So we start talking about taking people's guns away, well then, there goes your freedom. But it's like I was saying yesterday. It just boils down to the fact that it has nothing to do with guns. Guns are not the problem. Has technology advanced when it comes to guns? Sure. Of course they have. But I mean, people have been killing each other by the masses since the beginning of time. First, they used rocks, wooden clubs, and then evolved into spears, and then evolved into arrows, bows, catapults. It's all part of evolution. And now we have guns. Now we have guns. Well, no, see, curious AF, that's the argument too. Well, nobody's talking about taking away your guns. Well, not yet. Not yet, because there's always going to be some piece of shit now. Like I was talking about yesterday. Like this is an 18-year-old kid who pulled this off, all because he was pissy and the world wasn't going his way and he didn't like. And so everybody's like, oh, well, we need to address the mental health issues in this country. We do need to address the mental health issues in this country. I agree with that. But I don't think that this kid falls under that category. We're looking at this kid like we should feel sorry for him. Like society's mental health and like the mental health issues in the country have failed this child. Medical coverage, all these issues. Dude, you start giving away free medical insurance. You start giving away free medical insurance, and what that's going to do is it's going to bring the quality down. You're going to have more and more people seeking out medical care, and then you're going to have you're going to have a shortage of medical professionals and an increase of incompetent ones. So how's that going to solve the issue ultimately? It's just not. But that's not the issue with this kid. The issue is fucking society that he lives in this generation. This is a kid who is all over social media and he's bragging. This public safety director, he just confirmed that in that press conference that he was a gamer and he was on group threads and different on Instagram, Facebook. This is an antisocial little shit who doesn't look at people as people, but looks at them as social media profiles. Each individual to him at this point in his life, his perception of people is down to a social media profile, not someone who has a family that loves them and will miss them. An entitled little shit who didn't like the way the world was going because he felt like the world was supposed to hand him everything, and then it didn't. And so, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. I'm going to shoot my grandma, and then I'm going to shoot a bunch of kids. I'll show them. See, look at this. 99.9% of mentally unwell people are undiagnosed. Find me somebody who's perfectly psychologically well, psychologically healthy. Just find me somebody who's perfectly psychologically healthy. I guarantee you, because that's another issue in this country. Another issue is everything has some sort of psychological ailment and explanation to it. Everybody, anything that happens, anything that somebody does wrong, you can boil it down to some sort of psychological issue that can be diagnosed and given medication for. And then what happens? Big Pharma makes more money. Medication for restless leg syndrome. You see what I'm getting at here? So you find me somebody, I dare anybody, find me somebody who actually has a perfect bill of mental health, that there's no diagnosis if they go and they actually see a psychiatrist. So to sit here and say 99% of mentally unwell people are undiagnosed, well, maybe they don't need to be diagnosed. All that does is tell me that if you go into a psychiatrist's office, they're going to find something wrong with you. That's what that tells me. That's what that statement tells me. And yeah, like they're not. That's not going to stop anything. It's not going to stop anything. And you know, making people take a mental health evaluation before they are allowed to purchase a gun. Well, I mean, I don't see how that's actually going to work based on everything that I just explained. And then there's upping the age. That's also a slippery slope right there, Pug Mom. Because in theory, I agree with you. In theory, I agree with you. We need to up the age to buy a gun like we do for cigarettes and alcohol. Okay. So do we need to up the age for someone who can join the military? See what I mean? Let your wheels turn there for a second. Now, do I think that children should be allowed to buy cigarettes and alcohol? No. But one could also argue, well, you know, you should be if you need a license to buy a gun, you know, just like you need a license to drive a car, right? Here in Tennessee, you don't need a license for open carry, nothing. You don't need a license for it. You're right. Military gets trained. Sure. In the military, they teach an 18-year-old how to handle a weapon. It's required. I agree with you. But the problem with that is it's a freedom thing. Then it becomes a freedom issue, right? If you can draft somebody at 18 years old and make them fight, then an 18-year-old, in theory, if you're talking about liberty and America and all that, an 18-year-old in theory, should be able to walk into a sports goods store and purchase a rifle. They're paying taxes, right? Why not? The bottom line is we're living in a world with guns. I think the solution is people need to face that fact and arm themselves. And I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying take advantage of the fact that you're free to, you know, if you're the type of person who feels like you can make a difference and you can do something and you're the fight rather than flight type. Yeah. Arm yourself, train yourself on how to use the weapon, train yourself on safety. And if more people did that, then somebody like this is less likely to do something crazy. This is somebody who walked into a school and opened fire because he assumed nobody was going to be armed and shoot him back. He assumed this. He assumed he had a window of time before law enforcement got there. Yeah, and guys, these are just my opinions, man. You know, these are just my opinions. I'm not saying anybody else is wrong. You know, I may disagree with a lot of what you're saying, and you're free to disagree with me in my chat too. You're not going to be judged for it. This is why I love being an American. That is the essence of what I love about America, as you are free to your opinions. I'm not going to look at you getting emotional about this issue as attacking me. It absolutely means that there are guns already on the property. See, you're only looking at it from one perspective. Cherry, you're saying, and I see that perspective. I get that perspective. You're saying having teachers armed also means that there are guns already on the property. So you're thinking of, oh my God, what if a kid gets a hold of that gun? Well, of course, you practice safety procedures. You make sure that there is no way that a kid is going to get a hold of that gun, just like a parent who has a gun and keeps it in a lockbox in their home for home protection, right? But the other side to that coin, having teachers armed also means that there are guns already on the property. Well, yeah, because if that becomes common knowledge, do you think that some shithead coward like this kid is going to walk into a school knowing that there were guns on that property being ready to use by people who have been properly trained to use them? Do you think he's more likely or less likely to walk into that school and start shooting? Ask yourself that question. You see what I'm getting at? I mean, I'm all for the teachers walking around armed in the corridors, as long as they have their they have it holstered properly. I mean, what's the difference if there's an armed security guard in the school who has their weapon holstered properly? You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the faculty. In case somebody walks in right there, you can respond immediately. In Texas, some guy walked into a church. I think it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe. Some guy walked into a church in Texas, started shooting. And the second that he started shooting, somebody who just happened to be carrying a gun pulled out his gun, shot the guy right in the face. Now, you think that guy carrying a gun was more of a risk of people getting hurt, or did him having a gun at that church save lives? Well, okay. See, I'm not going to let this. We don't know all the facts, okay? But I'm not going to let this become a bashing of law enforcement. But I'm going to read your comment, and I'm going to answer it respectfully. He was in the building for 1 hour, and not one officer tried to stop him, but they stopped the parents from trying to save their children. Of course, they tried to save their. You don't let people in. You don't let civilians into a building when things are happening like that. You see what I'm saying, Dawn? Not so sweet. I agree with you that that law enforcement probably should have absolutely breached that building, knowing that there was an active shooter inside. But I'm not going to ostracize law enforcement for keeping civilians out of the building. Yeah, and you're saying the kid shot those kids at close range. He never should have been sold those weapons with 600 rounds. I definitely believe that is a red flag that should have been addressed and maybe even investigated. But then again, people, that's another slippery slope. Because I mean, what if I'm just buying 600 rounds just in case the shit goes down? Why do I, as an American, not have the right to stockpile weapons? Why does the government get to tell me how many weapons I have and how many rounds I have? The government shouldn't have the right to tell you that. That is an infringement on your freedoms. Do you see what I'm saying? That's a great question too. Why won't they let retired vets or retired officers who are trained provide protection at these schools? I know many who would. Right. I think that should be something to go into the school budget, is just hiring volunteers, volunteer retired or off-duty police officers or ex-military. Why not? Provided they pass a psychological exam, because they're going to be working with children. So that's the answer. So because somebody infringed on children's rights, then everyone's rights should be infringed on? No. I can't agree with you on that. I can't see eye to eye with you on that. People, we do not get to cherry pick when our freedom is convenient for us. It's the same thing when I talk about freedom of speech. We don't get to cherry pick as to when freedom of speech is convenient and when it's not. Sometimes you're going to hear things you don't like. Sometimes things are going to happen that are terrible and tragic. But you can't keep American citizens under a police state. Right. Okay. That's what I'm saying, is you just don't get to cherry pick. Sometimes shit fucking happens. I'm saying that the answer is not to depend on our government to lock us down that much more. I think one of the biggest problems in our society right now is that we're too dependent on our government. We are not independent enough. The key to your liberty is your independence. And in being independent, that means that you are exactly that. That you are not dependent on Big Brother to take care of you. That means you've got to take some responsibility. You've got to put in some work. You're responsible for yourself. It's kill or be killed. Dog eat dog. And right now, we're the go-to that I see all over social media from everybody is the government needs to start doing this. The government needs to stop spending money on this and spend money on that. No. Pick up a weapon, learn how to use it, and protect yourself. Protect your kids. Because bad people aren't going away. Crazy isn't going away. Exactly, Olivia Fig Newton John. I love your handle. You win handle of the day, by the way. We have rights, but that doesn't mean they don't come with consequences. They do come with consequences. Being an independent American means that you accept those consequences. You accept you accept the effect of that, whether they be negative or whether they be positive. You can't always fruitfully benefit from being a free, independent individual. Life is rough. It's going to get rough sometimes. The question is, how do you handle it? How do you take care of it for yourself? Because to me, sitting here, when you there's this clear problem with people who take advantage of innocent people, innocent, helpless people. Well, how do you solve that problem? Do you go to to me, that's the equivalent of going to your mom every time you've got a problem. Going to your mom or going to your dad every time you got a problem. What does your mom or dad do? Your mom or dad, normally it's your dad. But your dad will go, well, this is part of what being a grown-up is. What are you going to do about it? But Dad, I need your help. Well, what are you going to do about it? You're going to make decisions. Sometimes they're going to be bad decisions, but those decisions are opportunities to start again and make the right decision the next time. Right? But for some reason, the government doesn't do that. You never see a politician go up on a podium with a teleprompter talking about, dude, figure it out. Why? Because they want you to depend on them more. Because the more you depend on them, the more they can create laws that make you more dependent on them, and they can have that much more control over your lives. And you might be asking, well, what's the motive? That sounds like some serious conspiracy theory shit. Like, why does the government want to control me? Well, I mean, it's about money. The answer to 99 out of 100 questions is money, people. You think Elon Musk wants to control Twitter just because it's a cool thing to do? No, dude. You know how much fucking influence he's going to have by controlling a social media platform as big as Twitter? You know the kind of people that become politicians? Capitalists. It's all about money. So they can create laws that make you more dependent on whatever product they're selling. And people act like that's just so hard to believe. Like the government is like Santa Claus and they just want to help and they just want to take care of you. No. They're like an abusive boyfriend or husband. They make you dependent on them so that you can't do anything for yourself. And they can control what you consume. They can control what you spend your money on. I mean, that's just the way that is, people. Like, I don't make the rules, dude. You know what I mean? I'm just aware of the world I'm living in. And that's the cool thing is you have the freedom to be like, okay, you know, fuck it. Right. It sounds like a personal problem. Like, I was watching The Departed for like the 100th time the other day, right? And it made me laugh because, like I said, you're never going to hear a politician like they say, you know, somebody goes to the government for assistance and, you know, oh my God, okay, well, we'll help you and blah, 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 blah. But the IRS will do that shit. The IRS will be like, dude, you made this much money. You owe us this much money, period. You don't pay us, you're going to jail. That's it. Right? That's the same shit that this dude in The Departed did. Like, I remember he's beating the hell out of this guy. This guy's like, I make this much. He's like, if I pull in this income, I still got to pay the same amount. If I pull in less, I still got to pay the same amount. And then this guy goes, well, he's beating the guy up because he's like, you know, strong arming him. And he's like, you're in America. You're in America where you can make more money. So what are you going to do? And he beats the shit out of him some more. And the guy's like, make more money. He goes, there you go. If you don't make more money, you're a fucking, this is America. If you don't make money, you're a douchebag. Like nobody should be responsible for you but you. And you got these kids whose faces are buried in their electronics all their childhood and all through their adolescence. And then they go into the real world and realize that it's not, that mommy and daddy can't take care of them anymore or refuse to take care of them anymore. And so naturally they're going to feel entitled. Naturally they're going to go, well, fuck. Well then I'm just going to make the world burn. If the world's not going to give me what I want, bring me juice boxes every time because I'm so deep into my video game, like my mom would. Once I'm an adult, well, then I'm going to shoot everybody and I'll show them. That's all that shit's about, man. It's not about guns. The world doesn't understand me. The world doesn't understand me. Dude, the world is not required to understand you. The world was not born into you. You were born into it. It is your responsibility to adapt to the world. Well, yeah. I mean, that's interesting. So Columbine is a perfect example. Those parents said that they had no idea those boys were building pipe bombs in the garage. I call bullshit on that. So it's damned if they do, damned if they don't. So I see what you're saying, that the parents failed because they weren't paying attention to what their kids were doing. They didn't give a shit. Okay. But also, I don't see them admitting that they knew that the kids were building pipe bombs in the garage, like that they had knowledge of this. Like, I don't see any parent going, yeah, I guess we fucked up. I don't see that happening. That's exactly how I feel about it, Soper Girl. Anybody with a chip on her shoulder, man, they're gonna find a way. You don't think that people in London find guns? If somebody's driven enough to get guns, to get weapons, they're going to find a way. They're everywhere. The only difference is that somebody, if you outlaw guns, then like the bumper sticker says, then only outlaws will have guns. Right. See, I'd rather live in a world where a civilian who is of a decent frame of mind and is properly trained in using a firearm is free to have that, rather than the only people, like a law-abiding citizen, is carrying a gun. And I know that a bunch of law-abiding citizens are out there with guns, rather than feeling like the only criminals have guns, only criminals in law enforcement. That bothers me. That thought bothers me. And I don't think that makes you a helicopter parent. I think it's important to be aware of what's going on with your kids. I'm just thinking that the Columbine parents were probably, they probably either had no idea or they did have some idea, and the kids ran the house. they were like, what? You're building pipe bombs? You can't do that. And they're like, oh, shut up, Dad. We're fine. We know what we're doing. All right. All right. That's an interesting argument too. The last mass school shooting in the UK was 1996. Right, because firearms are definitely more difficult to get a hold of there. But you're talking about one issue. As tragic as school shootings are, I think it is absolutely and totally crazy to ban guns because school shootings take place. That's crazy to me. Exactly. So the police have guns, and any civilian with a gun is obviously a threat. They stand out and mainly get used in gang stuff. It's like you're not listening to me, Judes. It's like you're not listening. Because it's not worth me giving up my freedom. Like, my freedom as an individual is not worth giving up just to solve one serious problem. It's just not. The fact that guns are in so many homes and huge deterrent to criminals, even if you don't personally have one. Think about it. Yeah, it's a good point. That is a good point. And yeah, knife and acid attacks. Like, who attacks people with acid? Violent shitbags. You know what I mean? Like, this is a serious problem in the UK, obviously. Like, okay, so there's no school shootings. Great. But you got people throwing acid in each other's faces and stabbing each other. You know what I mean? So what does that tell you? That doesn't tell you that guns are the problem. You know why our relationship with guns here is totally different than the UK? Is because we beat the UK and we won our freedom from the UK over 200 years ago using guns. Get it? That's why this country feels so strongly about it. That's why you see libertarian t-shirts and right-wing t-shirts where it says 1776. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, we're proud of the fact that we won our freedom from a tyrannical government. And there's only a few of us left that are still proud of that, which is really crazy. There's just a few of us left that are still so proud of that and willing to fight for that. Like, think about it. If you want to be you want government to step in and help you and solve all your problems, right? Eventually, let's just say hypothetically, the government does come in and solve every one of your problems. You are 100% dependent on your government. How is that not a tyrannical government all of a sudden? Because I promise you, if you move into, so let's say you're just somebody who's never done shit with your life, right? And then you move into your brother's house and you're eating your brother's food. You're an adult. Say you're 30 years old. You're living in your brother's house who is 5-10 years older than you, 2 years older than you. Fucking young, your younger brother. Who gives a shit, right? You move in with them, right? They got all their shit together, but you don't have anything together, and you've become completely dependent on them. You're sleeping on their couch. You're eating their food. They're giving you rides places. Right? Does that person does your brother that you just moved into, does that person not have the right to say, my house, my rules? You're dependent on me. When you're able to buy your own food, when you're able to pay your own rent, then you get to do what you want. But in my house, if I'm supporting you, well, then you got to live by my rules, right? Why would the government be any different if you become totally dependent on them to make decisions for you? Before you know it, you're under tyranny. And like what's ironic is this country's doing it to themselves. They're doing it to themselves. Everybody's just so dependent. Everybody's so codependent. Everything is somebody else's fault. Nobody takes any accountability for anything. You know, everybody's just so codependent. I talked to my 16-year-old who was at a school with a janitor who had a plan to shoot up summer school August 5th, 2021. I told her a whole fourth grade class with tears in her eyes. She said, "This is the normal." Yeah, I mean, is that the solution? You know what I mean? Is that the solution? Any messed up person is a danger. Remove their hands, feet, tongue, and penis, and we will all be safe. Right. Exactly. That's not that's the logic. Unfortunately, that's the majority of logic. People don't even realize it. Because when you word it like that, they go, well, no, that's not what I'm saying. But it is what you're saying. It is what you're saying. You're saying take away all the guns, right? And then the mental health thing is just the argument once you prove that wrong. Once you go, okay, well, that's not the problem. Oh, okay, well, then we need to address the mental health issues in the country. Okay, well, how do you suppose we do that? What's the plan on that? Free healthcare? No. Because then healthcare becomes worthless. Literally, it becomes worthless. And I don't even think this is even a debate. I think this is just a discussion. Like, you guys are making some valid points. It's just that when it comes to like crime cases, right? When I talk about crime cases, if I can actually come up with a valid rebuttal to what you're saying, then there's doubt. There's doubt. And I mean, again, this is one of those issues, dude. This is one of those issues where, people feel strongly about their opinions. Like when it comes to political issues and when it comes to religious issues, people feel how they feel about it, and their minds just aren't going to change. I'm not expected to change anyone's mind here. I'm just stating how I feel about it, and you're more than welcome to feel differently about it. You're more than welcome to feel, to completely disagree with me. Again, this is why I love America, is because we can disagree with each other and we can be adults and we can discuss it. We can have a discussion. Right. What are you going to do? Just lock everybody up? Can't do that. Well, it's stupid to ban guns. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to do anything. You could ban all the guns you want, and then what? You know what I mean? People are still going to carry. People are still going to have them. Like, I live in Tennessee. Weed's illegal. I smoke weed every day. You know what I'm saying? You think prohibition stopped people from drinking? All it's going to do is create more of a policed state where people are being more and more harassed. And, law enforcement just has a tighter leash on ordinary, everyday citizens just trying to go about their own lives. You can't ban guns. Like, that's just stupid. And people are like, yeah, well, we're not talking about banning guns. We're just talking about gun control. How are you going to control them? You're not really going to control them either. There's no way to really control them. Right. And my argument to that stays the same. Because that's always the argument. Well, this country has more mass shootings than any other country. Well, more responsible Americans should arm themselves. That's my opinion. That's my solution. Everybody wins. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy except the people who want to throw a temper tantrum and shoot up a place. Because I promise you, if you walk into a school expecting half the faculty to be armed, you're less likely to want to plan a school shooting, are you? I mean, aren't you? You're less likely. Like, I'm less likely to walk into a Walmart and start shooting up a Walmart if I know that the majority of the bystanders in there are no longer actually bystanders. They're just good citizens who express their Second Amendment right by carrying a weapon. I'm less likely to walk in there because I'm going to get shot. I'm not going to victimize anybody because I'm walking into a public place full of a bunch of people that refuse to be victims. Right? Community involvement. Totally. Absolutely. All the more reason to arm the faculty or allow the faculty to arm themselves if they want to. All the more reason. You're saying if it was a store of any sort, people can choose to go in or out. Children are mandated to go to school. Right. I know. Children are mandated to go to schools. All the more reason why the faculty should have the freedom to arm themselves and protect themselves and the kids that they've been made responsible for that entire day. It depends on where you live, Shay B. Well, no. Again, see, no. I completely disagree with that too. Because the key word here is freedom. The key word here is the right to arm yourself, right? Like if somebody tells me that I gotta have a gun, I'm going to say fuck you to them just as quick as somebody who tells me that I can't have one. That's asinine, Pug Mom. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. If you're being serious, that's just a ridiculous statement. But if you're being sarcastic, which I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you are being sarcastic, you're saying, well, we do that. Let's just send the kids in school with guns. That's ridiculous. That's what are you talking about? How is an experienced, wise adult who is properly trained in handling a weapon and trained in the safety of handling a weapon, how is that the same thing as how does that merit a statement like we might as well just give the kids guns too? That makes absolutely no sense. I see there's that same argument again. Accidents happen. Like Cherry's implying that an accident could take place in a school where the faculty members are armed. Sure, an accident could happen. Sure. An accident could totally happen. But I promise you that that became the norm, that the rate of school shootings would actually, the mass shootings in schools would actually deteriorate significantly. So I'd rather an accident happen every once in a blue moon than mass shootings happening on a constant basis. No, I agree with you. No kid should have a gun in school. That's ridiculous. Of course not. No kid should have a gun. No kid should be handling a gun. Cherry, you're assuming. Come on, man. You're smarter than this. You're assuming that those guns are not going to be in a safe, secure area that nobody except authorized personnel can get to. I'm saying if that gun is on a trained, responsible adult on their person, somebody from the outside is not going to come in and take that gun from them, first of all. Now, if there are guns on the property, now, and I'm not saying to even have like a fucking like a gun safe. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying to let each individual faculty member who is vetted enough to be able to work with kids, allow them to take the initiative to train on gun safety and handling a weapon and shooting a weapon, train them properly on it to where they can keep it on their person in case some idiot mass shooter decides to go inside the school. And one of them can take that person down. I'm not talking about just having guns lying around for anybody to grab, you know? That's right, Johnny Cuddy. People have a license to carry all the time and no one knows. No one knows. Like, let's take that idiot. I did a live stream on that dude. That idiot who shot up the Safeway supermarket. You know, he admitted that the whole reason why he did that was to get people's guns taken away. Like he was trying to martyr himself to get to get the government to lock down on gun control. Because he wanted to live in a policed state. And this guy is a racist piece of shit. Really? How easy do you think it is to disarm someone? I mean, I know I've seen a lot more movies than you, Cherry, but how easy do you think it would be to disarm someone? Do you think it's really that easy? Like, I'm not going near somebody with a gun. Like, how often do you hear about that, where somebody actually takes the gun off of somebody else and starts shooting people? See, y'all are reaching, man. Y'all are reaching. Yeah, like if I have a gun on me and you're trying, if I even think that you're coming at me in an attacking manner, I'm gonna pull my gun out. My life's in danger. I'm pulling my gun out. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. I completely agree, Johnny Cuddy. I completely and totally agree with you. I agree with that too, Miss H. Cities with the worst gun violence have the toughest gun laws. Right. You know why? Because only violent people are getting a hold of guns. That's why. What? That can't be right. The Supreme Court has ruled that cops have no responsibility to protect anyone. What? They take an oath to protect and serve. What are you talking about? Yeah, a lot of schools have metal detectors, and they have since the 90s. Sorry, guys, I'm reading something here. Okay, you're misinterpreting this. So first of all, it's the Washington Post, which is a left, which is a leftist news source. It says here The headline says U.S. judge. Now, this is from December of 2018. Okay. The U.S. judge says law enforcement officers had no legal duty to protect Parkland students during mass shooting. You're misinterpreting that. No legal duty to protect Parkland students. So, it says here, a federal judge in South Florida tossed out a lawsuit filed by more than a dozen students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, who said they were traumatized by a mass shooting there in February, and that county officials should have protected them. U.S. District Judge Beth Bloom said neither the school nor sheriff's deputies had a legal obligation to protect students from the alleged shooter, Nicholas Cruz, who is accused of killing 17 people at the school February 14th. Her reasoning, the students were not in state custody. Bloom, who was nominated by the bench by President Barack Obama in 2014, wrote her opinion. The claim arises from the actions of Cruz, a third party, and not a state actor. Thus, the critical question the court analyzes is whether defendants had a constitutional duty to protect plaintiffs from the actions of Cruz. As previously stated, for such a duty to exist on the part of defendants, plaintiffs would have to be considered to be in custody. I agree with that. So that's being twisted. Okay. You're sitting here making it out to be like if cops show up to a situation like a mass shooting, for instance, that they could just stand there around. Legally, they could just stand there and be like, nah, whatever. I don't feel like dealing with that. Oh shit, man, duck. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're making it out to be like that's the case. No, that's not what that says. What this is saying is that they didn't have grounds to sue law enforcement because they did what they could. They don't have grounds to sue law enforcement, to hold law enforcement responsible for this person going in there and shooting up a school. Like, no, you don't get to just sue cops because there was a mass shooter. Like, I get you're traumatized over that, but that's on the shooter. That's not on the cops. So no, they had no legal obligation to actually prevent the situation from happening. Technically, unless the shooting happened at a police station, or while they were in police custody, that's what's called custody. That's why the term is called custody. When something or someone is within your custody, what that means is that you are responsible for them. If something is not in your custody, then you are not responsible for that something or someone. That's all that judgment determines. That's some manipulative shit right there. Like it's not saying that the Supreme Court ruled, hey, cops don't have to do jack shit when there's a bad situation. No, the cops, they took an oath to protect and serve, but they were not responsible for the school being protected from a mass shooter in the first place. Like, you don't, basically the judgment is saying you don't get to sue the cops for something that somebody else did. Like, what are cops supposed to do? Lock down your school? Infringe on everybody else's freedoms because there might be a school shooter? That's what you're talking about here. That's what you're talking about here. Protect and serve. Sure. Basically, what happens is, now I don't know about this case. I don't know about Robb Elementary, because we just found out that it took them 35 minutes after the fact to actually go in to the school, right? After they already knew that there was an active shooter. They switched from it being an active shooter situation to being a barricade situation, right? And in between that time, it took 35 minutes before they actually went in. So there they caught. It could be argued that they dropped the ball, that they did not protect and serve. But in any other scenario, the only thing cops are obligated to do is respond to a call and answer to it accordingly. That's it. They're not responsible for the school shooter happening in the first place. You don't get to sue the cops because somebody decided to go nuts and shoot up a school. That's not the cops' fault. Are they supposed to know beforehand? If your argument is that they're supposed to know beforehand, well, then guess what? Well, then that means that they would have had to have tapped your phone, tapped this person's phone, put cameras in his house, maybe. They would have had to infringe on his rights. Can't do that. It's not that's not how America works. There's more of that knife crime going on. See, that's the thing that people are not understanding. You don't know what the circumstances are as to why they don't go in. There are factors where maybe it's possible that they're putting children in more danger by breaching and going in guns blazing. You just never know. You don't know if you're going to go in there and you're going to shoot a kid by accident. You don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? You weren't there. You don't know what made these police officers make the decisions that they made. Exactly. Like, yeah, you're never going to hear me criticize a situation like that as far as law enforcement handling something when I don't know what it's like to be in that situation. I don't know what it's like to have to make life or death decisions when it comes to the lives of innocent people, especially children. I'm just not going to do that. I think it's ignorant and foolish to make those assumptions as to what they should have done and what they shouldn't have done when you don't know what it's like to be a law enforcement officer, much less someone trained in tactics. Yeah, that's going to boil down to the same thing as, uh, when I talk about court cases, I always give the disclaimer, dude, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. You know what I mean? In this case, I'm not a cop. And he wasn't even really LE. He was public safety, Jerry. He was a public safety spokesperson. He wasn't even there. And everybody was jumping down his throat, yelling at him, going, why didn't you do this? And why didn't you do that? And he's sitting there caught between not throwing law enforcement under the bus and taking responsibility for some sort of responsibility for what happened to those kids. Yeah, like it's like a can't win thing, dude. With like leftists get on my nerves, man. Like leftists get on my nerves more than the right gets on my nerves sometimes, man. Not the far right. The far right, they're a bunch of fucking crazy people. But leftists, man, I swear, leftists get on my nerves with their bullshit because everything is always some argument, right? Every argument that they have can be broken down and then they just go to some fallback, you know? Like, oh, well, you know, defund the police, right? Well, if we defund the police, so you tell us to defund the police, right? Tell us to defund the police, but you're mad because there wasn't more police there at the school to prevent this from happening? Well, then gun control. Okay, well, you know, how do you propose that? Well, we focus on the mental health issues in this country. Okay, well, what's your solution to focusing on the mental health issues? You know, what about the people who can't afford to get help? What about the people who don't know that they need help? Right. Oh, free healthcare. Like, dude, it's just annoying, dude. You know? And I think the right could be just as bad, man. Like, but now when it comes to issues like this, like you talk to a logical Republican, you know, I can fuck with them and at least have a conversation. But you know, 90% of the time when I talk to somebody on the left, it's you know, now I'll side with somebody on the left when it comes to an issue like abortion. You know what I mean? But things like this, it's like, no, dude, you got to stay in your lane. You don't know what it's like to be a cop. You don't know what it's like to have somebody's life in your hands. And mostly because you'll never have the fucking bravery to actually put yourself in that position. But you're real quick to criticize those who are in that position of authority. You know, that's not. Right. Sober girl. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm not going to get into that's a whole nother conversation. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, I don't think men should be making decisions on what women do with their bodies. It's just that simple as far as I'm concerned. And what's ironic about that, it's for the same reason why I'm defending cops in this situation. I don't know what it's like to be a cop. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. So why am I going to criticize a woman for what she does with her body? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what it's like to be a cop. I don't know what it's like to have to make those kind of life or death decisions with other people's lives in my hands. I don't have any idea. So I'm not going to just start bashing them and criticizing them. Dude, guns are really expensive. Bullets are really expensive. Did you know how much fucking money that would cost? Do you have any idea how much money that would cost? Everybody gets a deep psychological evaluation. Do you really think like somebody who is focused on buying a gun to do some mass, you don't think that this kid would have been able to just sit down and go, no, I don't have any violent thoughts at all. Never in my life have I ever had a violent thought. You don't think he had enough common sense to he would have had enough common sense to lie to somebody giving him an evaluation? And then boom, they just write him off as mentally competent, and then he buys a gun. like, people don't think these things through, man, when they say things. It's just like, dude, come on, get real. Think, use your head. And I'm not calling anybody stupid. I'm saying don't let yourself say stupid things when all you got to do is just think. Drug test, dude. Do you know how easy it is to pass a drug test too and get around a drug test? Exactly, Cherry. Good point. Dude, fucked up manipulative people. I'm telling you, it's not a question of this kid being crazy. It's a question of him being an entitled little shit. People need to stop coddling everybody going, "Oh, it's a mental health issue." Oh, it's depressing, and it's depression, and it's anxiety, and it's, uh dude, pressure of this and pressure of that. Like, just why can't mental health professionals try to teach someone to take accountability for their actions? Like, it's a racket, dude. It's a racket. The mental health industry is a total racket, in my opinion. They take somebody who's codependent, and then they take advantage of them being codependent and make them no longer dependent on something else that they had problems with, but now make them codependent on them. They make them dependent on them, and then they prescribe them drugs. And no drug is ever the cure. It's always just a treatment. Oh, well, I think we need to increase your medication this week by another half a dose of this and 2 more doses of that. It's a fucking racket, dude. Mental health is not the issue. Right. How about teaching some coping skills, Johnny Cuddy? Right. I agree with that too. Like, at the end of the day, man, I say simply just understand that we're living in a fucked up, shitty world. And the only way to protect yourself from crazy people with guns is keep a gun handy to make sure that a crazy person you don't end up a victim of a crazy person with a gun. That's the only way to protect yourself. But sitting there and relying on the government to do more, like, no, dude. The government needs to do less. You need to have more accountability for your own shit. And the best way to do that, dude, like, I'm telling you, if I'm somebody with an entitled attitude, and my go-to is I'm going to go up and shoot up a Walmart, but I happen to know that the likelihood that half of the people in that Walmart could be armed, I'm not going up there and shooting up that Walmart. I'm just going to have to sit there and marinate in my frustrations. That's all I'm going to do. No, it's being a relaxed, rational person with a gun. That's the answer. You're not listening to me, Jerry. You're not listening. The answer to crazy people with guns is rational people with guns. I'm so glad you made this comment, Cherry, because that is as simple as I can put it. I'm going to close with that statement. The answer to fucked up, violent, shitty people with guns is rational, decent people with guns. Guys, I love you, and we will do this again very soon, my friends.